I'm not gonna put that in the video.
Bloop boop boo. Bloop doop doo. Bloop doop da boo.
Hey, I'm Michael.
I'm Molly.
Today we're going to chat about some music from Final Fantasy VII. We've done this with two previous videos with Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger. Molly, who is not a gamer, I'm going to make her listen to some music and tell me what she thinks is going on, what the music is trying to convey. But Molly is a musician, so she's pretty good at this. So what we're going to do this time, I'm going to have Molly listen to some of the character themes from Final Fantasy VII, try and describe what the characters are like, and then I'll show her images and she can try and connect the correct image to the correct song. Little bit of quick background on the game. Final Fantasy VII is a more modern setting than a lot of the games that we've been talking about. There's no time travel like in Chrono Trigger or anything like that, but there are big machines sucking basically fossil fuels out of the planet.
Like in real life.
Yeah, several of the characters are eco-terrorists.
I love an eco-terrorist.
Yeah.
That's like one of my dream jobs. Tree sitter, actually. That's the vein of eco-terrorist that I would like to be. I'd like to be a tree sitter.
I'm not going to put that in the video. And that's the end of the usable footage that we had from this video. I don't know exactly why it happened, but for some reason, as soon as I plugged my headphones into my computer so that Molly and I could listen to these songs, Final Cut Pro said it was still recording, but it didn't actually record anything. Unfortunately, this is something that I don't think that we can recreate. I didn't notice this until Molly was home the day that we recorded this, and then the guessing game nature of this wouldn't work. Luckily, I do have Molly's notes on this, so I'm going to do my best to sort of bring out the high points of our conversation, but it'll be a little difficult because, unfortunately, we also got into some really interesting conversation about the importance of music in a narrative art form, and then even about the importance of art to our daily lives, and the importance of art as a unifier for people to rally behind, especially when they're faced with oppression. So let me see what I can do to get into this without Molly. So I played these 9 character themes for her in a random order, and I wanted to see what she could come up with. I do have some notes that I took down while Molly was listening and talking about this stuff. So this is what all of the notes look like. So they're pretty sparse, but I can kind of remember somewhat what she was talking about. We took notes like this for each of the pieces one at a time, and then I let her look at the character images and try and make some connections. Then we went back and listened to things again if she wanted to, so that she could make her final decisions. The first theme that we listened to was Tifa's theme. Molly noted that the theme sounded very romantic, pastoral, and feminine. What Molly ended up with for number 1 for Tifa's theme, she actually thought belonged to Vincent, which is interesting, but that's one of her only mistakes, as you'll see shortly. Next, I played Barrett's theme, and Molly talked about how the snare, especially, made the song feel very militant, but also it sounded sort of pompous, and this character thinks they're hot shit. Molly guessed correctly that this fit with Barrett. It's not one of the ones that she immediately jumped to, but she was able to piece it together without too much effort. We got to talking about my thoughts on Barrett's theme and how I think the militant nature of it makes sense for the head of an eco-terrorism group, but I kind of don't love that the theme sounds so comedic in context, and I wonder if that was sort of a missed opportunity. Next, I played the Turks theme for Molly. Of this, Molly said that it sounds like a villain, it sounds sinister, and it sounds sneaky. She was thinking like a ninja or a hacker, and I think that's a good fit for the Turks. Though they are not ninjas or hackers, they are sinister villain types with some comedic undertones to it, and they work in the shadows a lot of the time, performing, assassinations and whatnot, so that made perfect sense, and she chose correctly there. Next, I played Red's theme for Molly. And of this, she said that it sounded vaguely Eastern, and she thought that this might be a villain. But then when she was looking at the character images altogether, she realized that this is the one that most closely fit to the non-human animal character. She also noted that it sounds like there's some sort of connection to the land. When Molly was talking about how this sounded vaguely Eastern, I think that was a little bit of misguided guess, but I do think that if she had also heard the Cosmo Canyon theme, she would have gotten the intended Native American reference that it seems like the music is making, which is not my favorite thing in the world. I wish that the music didn't go quite so hard in that direction, but it is effective in letting Molly know who the character is just from the music, at least. Next, I played Kate Sith's theme for Molly, and she said of this that this is a jazzy, cool, smooth gambler type. This is one of the ones that Molly struggled with, but she eventually correctly chose Kate Sith just based on their image. Next, I played Yuffie's theme for Molly, and of this, she said it sounded vaguely country western, childlike, and feminine. Then she said lawful good, which is funny because I don't think Yuffie is lawful good. I think she is chaotic good, or at least neutral good. I think the interesting thing, country and western sounds, so like a cowboy feel with a ninja feel, they actually go together really well. They're very similar tropes in character types. I find it interesting that Uematsu in his compositions has at least twice made those connections musically as well. This is one of the ones that Molly picked up on really quickly. She looks like the music sounds. It's childlike, and it's obviously not a villain. Next, I played Vincent's theme for Molly, and of this, she said that it sounded like it was either something to do with horror or sort of a wistful singer-songwriter feel. This person she felt was an artistic or a romantic type, and a capital R romantic, as in like a traditional romance, not necessarily romantic as in love. And she said that this character has a past. And, she noted that all characters have pasts unless they are just born. But she meant, a storied past. And Vincent certainly does have that. However, Molly was feeling this choice being drawn toward Tifa more. She felt that Tifa had this character with a past theme to her. And when we were talking about it in the end, she thought that this also seemed to fit Vincent really well, and especially once she looked a little bit more closely at Vincent's character design. But then she didn't feel that Tifa's theme fit her super well, and I think it's because in Tifa's character design, you don't really get to see the childhood best friend trope in her design as much, and the music certainly fits childhood best friend, which Molly did agree with at the end. Next, I played Sid's theme for Molly, and of this theme, she said it sounded militant and heroic. This is a fighter and a character with a code, and she was saying, again, this is lawful good, and again, I think she kind of misstepped on lawful good, but she was able to correctly pick Sid. However, she thought that this design and this music was giving main character feelings, and interesting that she thought that. Number 9, the last one, I played Aerith's theme for Molly, and she correctly chose Aerith. She said that this sounded romantic and heroic and feminine, and that's exactly what Aerith looks like in her design. Molly was like, she's got cool boots though, I want those boots. But it was really funny because she thought that Aerith and Sid were a couple based on their designs and their music. She's like, their music goes together so well, and they both have similar weapons. So that was kind of funny. So even though this video had a lot of problems to it, I hope you're enjoying it in its sort of neutered form like this. If you are, please give this video a like. It means a lot to me. If you want to see more stuff like this, subscribe. We talk about games and music mostly, but we talk about media and arts in general as well. And I hope you are interested in seeing more stuff like this. Then we got to talking about Aerith's death scene, and I played the scene from the game for her. And she said that, it's a sad scene, but the music is really doing a lot of heavy lifting in making this feel sad. At points in the past, I've thought of background music for video games or movies or TV as being a little manipulative, a little emotionally manipulative. Now, especially after our conversation yesterday, I feel that it should do that. If it's in a narrative piece of fiction, music should help tell the story. Music should make you feel things. It doesn't necessarily need to help tell the story, but it should make you feel things. If it moves you to cry, that's good. Art should have the ability to do that. We got to talking about the difference between Nobuo Uematsu and Yasunori Mitsuda's composition styles. She actually felt a stronger connection to Mitsuda's compositions just as music goes when we listen to Chrono Trigger, and I totally get that. I do think that they are really about equal on how good of a composer they are just at face value. But when it comes to storytelling in a game, I really think that Uematsu is a little bit better at this than Mitsuda. The Final Fantasy VI character theme video and this Final Fantasy VII experience that unfortunately we lost the recording to most of, Molly was very successful in picking out things and describing the character just by the music. When we did Mitsuda's music, she struggled a lot more in getting vibes from it, but she was like, this is really good music. I think what it is that the way Uematsu approaches composition, it's more operatic. And I don't mean singing, and I don't mean like the Final Fantasy VI opera scene. The way that he composes, he is focusing on telling the story with the music itself, without any text, which is what the truest definition of what opera is. It's a stage work with singing, where the music itself, ignoring the text, should be able to do a pretty good job of telling the story. That's really the difference between musical theater and opera. Ultimately, the piece of stagecraft is whatever the composer says it is. If they say it's an opera, it's an opera. If they say it's a musical, it's a musical. People will usually say things like, oh, well, an opera has no spoken dialogue and a musical does. But that's not true, because musicals like Phantom of the Opera have no spoken dialogue, and operas like Carmen and The Magic Flute have lots of spoken dialogue, so that's not really the case either. You can talk about how the style of singing between these two art forms is different, but really there's a continuum, and it's really hard to point exactly where the point between musical and opera is on that continuum, because some operas will have less classical sounding singing than others, and some musicals will have really quite classical sounding singing. So that's not really the best descriptor. In a musical, you really rely on the text, either spoken text or sung text, to tell the story, because musicals really mostly come out of popular music. But with an opera, the music is telling the story even if you don't speak the language. That's why, for instance, in Pretty Woman, when they go to the opera and they see La Traviata, I don't think they have the subtitles or the surtitles happening in that production, so they don't know what's happening, but that is sung in Italian, and this woman who has never been to the opera before still gets enough of the story to know what's happening and is deeply moved. That's what an opera should be able to do. And I mentioned before we talked about the importance of the arts in our daily lives. This is sort of where we got to talking about how I feel a little silly lately, making my little YouTube videos while Rome burns, essentially. You know, while this country is not going so well. I'm in the US, by the way, if you couldn't tell. We came to the conclusion together that I want to use this channel to make a political statement a little bit. That's not going to be the focus of the channel, obviously. I want to stand up for what I believe in, but also being able to still create something when there is so much destruction happening is itself kind of a form of resistance. If I can make someone else's day just a little bit better with one of my videos, then I am happy to do that, and I think it's worth it. But also, even if nobody else enjoys it as much as I do, I still enjoy making these videos, so I'm going to keep doing it, and that is a little mini form of resistance on my part. You may have heard that the head of our current administration named himself as the chair of the board of the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., and I am in the Washington, D.C. area. That's the closest big theater to me. I have a lot of friends who work at the Kennedy Center. I have a lot of friends who have performed at the Kennedy Center. Music that I've composed has been performed at the Kennedy Center. The goal is not really to make the art better. I think the goal is to destroy the arts as much as possible. This is just one spot where the current administration can say, you don't get this anymore. They can get rid of that institution or make it less functional, but they can't get rid of the will of the people to create art. And it's still going to keep happening, and I'm still going to keep supporting it as much as I am able to. And I'm going to do what I can to help create and bring some beauty into the world myself. I hope we didn't get too many people clicking away or unsubscribing, but if you unsubscribe because of these opinions, these things that I feel really deeply, actually. It's more than just an opinion. This is an integral part of who I am. If you unsubscribe because of these beliefs that I have, then, I'm sorry to see you go, but I understand. For everyone who's still here, thank you for supporting me, and I'm going to do what I can to help you, too. With that kind of heavy note, I'm going to sign off for now. Again, thank you for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, check this video up here. YouTube thinks you might like that one. Down here is a playlist of other similar videos to this, so check that out if you want to see more. All right, that should be about it. Maintain your groovy selves.